My name is Jason Vong. I run a YouTube channel on hybrid shooting, giving reviews and tutorials on how to make better photos and videos. And today I want to show you guys 5 tips on better mobile videography. So tip number 1 is don't be robotic. So when it comes to mobile videography, I think a phone gimbal is very synonymous. People like to use phone gimbals to sort of make their motion a lot smoother. But a common mistake that I see is they accidentally make things look robotic. So popular shots that I see are these long takes where the gimbal operator is following someone or they're going down a straight path. But when they need to make a turn, it suddenly falls apart because it looks like they're playing old school Doom. Or if you find that you're still making very robotic movement, what I would suggest if you do different takes, from different angles. So instead of just following down one path, maybe you can get like a back shot or a front shot, and then maybe go across the street or to a different sort of vantage point and get them continuing their motion. So that's one way to sort of create a more seamless scene. Tip number 2, don't leave in the linger. So another mistake that I would often see in an edit is when the gimbal operator is clearly still kind of lingering before they're making their gimbal movement, whether they're doing a parallax or they're trying to create a review shot. They would kind of just like leave in the couple seconds before they're doing their gimbal move. So definitely take into account what's happening. Make sure to cut that part out. You want to cut at the exact millisecond when you're doing that gimbal movement before you throw it into your video. Otherwise, it does look a little amateur. Tip number 3, exaggerate your foreground. So one of the ways that you can really sort of exaggerate the movement in your scene when it comes to mobile videography is to look for foreground elements. Oftentimes I see in other people's videos, they're sort of pushing into these nice architecture or pushing into these nice buildings or the subject that they're trying to shoot. But unfortunately, because they're just walking into something, it doesn't really translate too well in the final results. Like there's not a whole lot of movement. So what you want to do is probably try to find maybe some trees or some poles and kind of frame it into your shot and then do your push in, because then you would really create these very subtle movement but very powerful shots that make it feel a little bit more cinematic. So for example, you might be seeing a scene right now where I'm pushing into the Louvre, the pyramid in Paris. And as I'm pushing in, it doesn't look that interesting. But when I started backing up and frame these 2 light poles in my shot and I'm pushing in, yeah, you feel that difference, right? Oh, it looks so good. Tip number 4, don't zoom. And what do I mean by that is your cameras on the back of your phone, they're the best they can be already. So when you try to zoom, you're actually zooming into pixels. So your final result when you're trying to put together a video and you have clips that are zoomed in, it's just not gonna match up well. It just doesn't look good. So my advice is if you need to get close to something, I would say either switch to the longest lens that you have on your phone or simply just walk up close to something and get your close-ups that way. And lastly, tip number 5, control your focus. So the autofocusing system on our smartphones have gotten really, really good, but they're still not smart enough to kind of keep things in focus. Oftentimes I see in other people's videos, the focus sort of pulsing, especially when you're doing these review shots that I was talking about earlier, really taking advantage of the foreground elements. It's not gonna be able to know that you want your subject that's behind the foreground to be in focus or keep focus. So what would end up happening is that it'll focus on that foreground element first before it'll focus to the background. So the best thing that you can do is sort of lock your focus first. If your camera app can do that, lock your focus down first on your subject of interest and then perform your movement. So definitely keep that in mind when you're doing your mobile videography, just to lock down that focus and make it a little bit more cinematic. So hopefully these 5 tips will help you guys out in your next mobile cinematic video project. For any questions that you have, leave them in the comments down below. And you can also find me on my YouTube channel, Jason Vong, or my Instagram @JasonVMedia. Thanks for watching, guys. Thank you, B&H. See you guys in the next one.